Yo, hey guys. This is kind of a video with not a lot of direction, but I was just thinking about one of my old characters, Atticus here, and how he was as far as one of the earlier characters. He wasn't my first. I think my first was some immortal dude, and I can't remember what other powers he had. But Atticus, I think, was my best early character. I actually enjoyed him a bit more than Zeratul because Zeratul felt like he was one of those characters where I picked some pretty terrible numbers and a lot of his stuff was just weak or outclassed. Like his invisibility never really worked because the people he were up against could cinch out your power or your energy or something like that, and his invisibility only covered light spectrum, and his psychic abilities, I think it wasn't until insanely late game that he managed to actually do anything with it against some people, and it was people that were I think significantly weaker than him. So it was he was on the weak side. I mean, like I said, he had some very impressive moments, whenever he harnessed that cosmic energy and actually got to do something, which was a feat unto itself. But what's it called? Atticus, on the other hand, was actually pretty nice. He had he was a half mutant, half something. I forget what his other half was, but his human side was a mutant with Magneto's powers. And when I say with Magneto's powers, I mean I think he was better than Magneto uh, on the scale of things. I don't think he had the finesse levels that Magneto did, but he could affect a like to some degree an entire planet's gravitational field. Not maybe not okay. Maybe a better way to word it would be he could influence it. He couldn't disrupt it or anything like that, but he could kind of affect it. So that was really nuts. And the people he met through it was pretty crazy. I remember he met Link from Legend of Zelda, and he could jump really high and he was really fast. Uh, he met some other people, I think, from that universe, which was kind of cool. He was one of those people who met a lot of people. He ran into he was my first experience with the Children of Genesis, and there was these two kids, and they were there was this planet with all kinds of civilization and everything like that, and they were walking, and the one was just destroying. There was this wall of destruction as far as he could see and as far as he could sense and everything like that. Maybe he was half Saiyan, I don't know. If he was half Saiyan, he was really nice, but I don't think he moved fast and hit hard. But he might have been decently fast hitting and or yeah, all that kind of stuff. But so the Children of Genesis anyway, where they were walking, and the one kid was just creating this wall of destruction that was just leveling civilization, and the other was in her wake. I think she was uh, basically renaturing everything that was raised, and it was kind of upsetting because the people here, you're gonna kill us, and they didn't care. So that's how we knew the Children of Genesis were jerks. And this is one of those ones where we planet hopped a good bit because I think we always asked for a starship for one of our items or something like that, and that was part of the crew, where it was Jeff, Ty, myself, Drew, I think were a part of that, and I think Mike and Jay kind of came and went. This was prime college days, where everyone was kind of getting their feet wet with real world. A lot of people had main characters in it, and the DM was all sorts of busy. But yeah, Atticus got to meet a lot of people, and I said one of the most interesting things was it wasn't until I had met you guys, specifically you, Kari, Timir, and all of them, as far as other real worlders, that I had heard the crew were actually good guys, because man did I hate the crew. Like, they were always up on my balls about something or another. Like, there were members out there that were just like constantly trying to kill me, and I thought they were the bad guys, because I mean, like, okay, granted, my dude had Hellspawn armor, and I had always pictured him as kind of like the Spawn type character where he was gonna redeem himself, and I'm jumping around here as far as story goes. He actually did at some point, but like he was never. I don't think he was like ever like the bad guy. Like back then, I didn't play a good bad guy or anything like that. But I loved the Spawn movies, so if you can imagine like a dude with Magneto's powers, with like I said, he might have been half human, half Saiyan, who was also had Hellspawn armor. Like he had an amazing amount of utility, and he was insane. Like he was really powerful. Like the Magneto side of things, I think that was one of the best numbers I had ever picked for Sean's game, and it was he was just like an awesome character, and his hobby was for some reason to collect swords. Like he always wanted like a legendary sword or something like that, and I think that was what he put a lot to it. Like we ran into him later at some point in the game, which I need to start adding him to movies and stuff like that, because I would love to find out a little bit like about what Atticus went through, because he redeemed himself and has like Heaven Spawn armor the last time I saw him, and it was kind of like this, instead of like the black with the red cape that did all the crazy stuff and the chains, he had like this blue and white armor, and I think he had these giant wings. But yeah, he looked completely badass to me, at least, as like a fan of Spawn and stuff like that. So like I would love to kind of get a glimpse, because I think what happened to him is when he ended up dying, and I don't remember exactly how he died. It might have been the member of the crew who could control gravity fields, I think eventually crushed him in a fight. There was no, we weren't given the opportunity to play the over or underworld at that point, so we just so the character was gone. And but yeah, like I said, I don't remember a lot of his coherent storyline from where things went, where he went. Like he just like I think they just kind of went around. And to be fair to the crew, like in retrospect, I'm pretty sure Drew was a demon. I'm pretty sure, or part or half demon. I'm pretty sure Jeff or Ty or one of those guys was a Sith, and Jay was like a half Kryptonian. So Jay is Keith Jr. when it comes to making characters, because he made some insanely powerful people within like games. Like he was always really good at putting together a powerful character. Like he wasn't a big real worlder. Like he was like probably the, like outside of myself, I'd say he was the biggest from college. But like he wasn't like quite as hardcore into it. But he always made these really powerful characters, and I think he always picked really good numbers, because I remember him being really fast, really strong, really destructive. The three things you want for a real world character if you're gonna be out there getting it in. And yeah, this is like from what you guys said about Keith and what I've heard or seen from his characters, like I don't think he's quite on the level of Keith, because like Keith seems like he's better at like working the systems of games and stuff like that. But Jay was nice in his own right for making these immensely powerful characters, whereas like I seem to make more of a utilitarian character where like they might have different abilities that aren't directly combat related. Like I haven't made a lot that just like straight up move fast, hit hard. That's why I was trying to make like a Saiyan, I think, in Time Year's game. But I think I might go back and relook at the races. I still want to make someone who's very combat focused, but yeah, like, I tend to play like the wizard type as opposed to like the barbarian berserker. But Atticus could get it in, I think, pretty good. And I guess I'm trying to think of like all of the people, more of the people he met. He was, like I said, he was part of that group that always had a spaceship, so they were always kind of bouncing around. This was like pre-Legacy days, so, like you could basically fly around. Like no one cared if you like showed up on a planet or something like that. Like no one cared. It wasn't that no one cared. It was that you could do it without like this overwhelming power coming after you to stop you from doing it. So that was back in the good old days of Generations, where before Legacy was like dicking everybody over and everything like that. But yeah, like I'm trying to remember, like there was a couple things he did like feat wise as far as the powers of magnetism went, where like like they were like citywide events where he could like rip up cities and stuff like that, and he could, like I said, I remember there was something where it felt like I was affecting the entire magnetic field of the planet to the point where I was disrupting it. And like that, I was like, that was just kind of the level of niceness he was on. And you would think like the Hellspawn armor would kind of be like, eh. The Hellspawn armor in its own right was nice because like the Magneto stuff was on the macro scale. Like that's like, I'm not saying he threw planets, but like that was like his planet, like throw like the guy who threw planets level thing where he could do that. But then when you got up close to him, like the Hellspawn armor was actually pretty vicious because it gave him, you know, it gave him a lot of durability. It gave him like the chains were just nasty. Like I remember he tore more than a couple of people apart with those things. And yeah, he was a really well-rounded character. Uh, I don't know if he had like a big overarching story. Like I said, it was funny because I remember like the crew were kind of like constant harassers of them. And like I said, to be fair, we did have some very evil type people with us, or at least with evil origins, but I don't think we were out there performing overly evil acts. So I always thought of the crew as the bad guys. Like the crew are just these bunch of dicks going around, like causing trouble and, you know, trying to stop me and my friends. um, Maybe one of us was a vampire too. Like it was a seriously like it was one of those ones where it was a group of people with seriously evil origins. So take that for what you will. But I guess in retrospect, and I said it was definitely funny to hear, like, oh, the crew are actually the good guys in the game, and they were trying to stop us. Like, he was one of the people he's met, like, Fist in Your Jaw Man. He met the Master. He met a lot of people. Like, he met a lot of people that I think are kind of now famous or infamous NPCs within generations. Like, a lot of the ones you hear about. I don't think he ever met Harold. He might have, but I guess it's one of those ones I don't remember specifically being introduced to Harold. And I said it would have been interesting to meet him back then because I don't know if Harold was like as powerful as he was. Like maybe Atticus could have given him some hands or something like that if he came up without the Sword of the Ancients. Because like I said, it was just there was so much time and so much that had happened during all of that, and it was one of those. I think it was more our overarching story was more like exploration and discovery, and like kind of like I don't want to say like Star Trek-ish, and there might have been something we were actually supposed to do at some point, but I think it was like there was so many characters going on, you know, as opposed to having like a specified arc of this is your mission. It was more, oh man, what kind of, you know, nonsense are we getting into this time? And we would meet, like I said, we would just meet a lot of people and go a lot of places. I really, like I said, he's one of those ones where I think as like far as my real world characters go, like characters I've created, everything like that, I think he was the closest to, you know, like how sometimes when you envision like character creation and everything like that, like what you want out of a character and how you want to kind of like get to that powerful place inside of real world. Like he was the one that hit it. Like he was the one for me that was like my personal MVP of a character. And like I said, it's one of those ones where it's a shame because I don't remember as much about him because I don't think I think I lost those notes at some point during like one of the moves or probably one of something like that. And yeah, but yeah, he was a lot of fun. I'm trying to think. That was. I remember, like, you know, everyone. What's it called? Jeff was the one. I don't know if like you guys ever did this, but Jeff kind of pioneered, at least within our group, is the second there was any downtime in real world, like as far as like what your character's doing, if like people were having a conversation or something like that, if there was anything that wasn't combat related, he would drop and start doing push-ups. So like that was kind of like he was like the always trained type person. So he always wanted to get stronger, and I think a lot of us kind of adapted that as far as our characters went. It's like, oh, you know, if there's something happening and stuff like that, you'd be carrying on a conversation with someone, but you'd be doing push-ups while you're doing it because you want to be stronger to hit the next guy harder. And that was definitely funny to me. I think like Atticus's big thing is like he was constantly trying to work on his finesse with his magnetism powers because, like I said, while he could like rip up city blocks and stuff like that, Like he couldn't do like the Magneto like rip the iron out of your body, or like the really small things like the metal balls like Magneto did. And and I wanted him to be like, I wanted to have that as well. And I think he did his fair share of push-ups too. I think that might have been with the character that Jeff rolled, where he had speed to the point. This is one of the ones where this is why I kind of fell in love with real, because like we had why I fell in love with real world. I'll learn to finish my thoughts someday. Because this is the time like when there was D&D campaigns and vampire campaigns going on as well. And it's like, you know, in those games, like you kind of have like your progression, but you start out very weak and chump-like, and even if you like do like fun creative things, like you're still limited by the game system, or at least the DM, depending on how much they follow it strictly. So Jeff made this character, and he made a really fast. It wasn't even. I don't think he made him an intentionally fast character. He made a character that picked like almost dead on for his speed, like to the point where it was a pretty big number, and he picked it like almost dead on. But his control was awful. So whenever he would run, he would tell the DM, like the first time he ran, I think this is how he became a part of like the ship destroying crew. The first time he ran, he didn't realize he had no control over it. So it's like DM's like, well, how fast do you run? As fast as I can, DM. So phew, Jeff takes off. But it's just like the world around him blurred, and he ran like, and he was a pretty strong and powerful character. I can't remember, like I said, he might have been like a vampire type dude, like a vampire crossed with some other powerful race. And it was, like I said, back then I think a lot more of us played. We didn't play like custom races within generations. I think we played more on what we learned about from like anime and movies and TV and stuff like that. So he was something like that. But anyway, he ran, and he literally ran through our starship, tore through it like it was nothing, and had this like giant like skid mark in the earth of him trying to stop after the fact. So after that, like every time he'd run, he'd say, "Yeah, damn, I run," and he didn't really have enough control to say like I run at like 50% or anything like that. He would just have to say run, stop, and he would just have to hope he doesn't like plow through something like that. And it was hilarious because he was so fast, he could still traverse, like whenever he just went to run, you know, he would still like plow through things even in like that instantaneous moment. So that was kind of one of my memories that made me really fall in love with real world. The other one was, and I remember we talked about Mike before. Like Mike was a really cool guy. Like he was not I don't want to say he wasn't the brightest person, but when it came to the stuff he did in real world, it was very questionable. Like he didn't make that leap between what I'm doing and the consequences that would follow it. And so, like sometimes that was to his detriment, and there was other times where it was unfortunate what happened. And the first time I think I've told this story before is where he made the character that could phase, but he had like the way he worked. I wasn't privy to the process of him making the character or anything like that, but apparently the way he worded it was when he phased, he just phased through everything. So he phased, but he had no way to augment his like self on the vertical spectrum. So like as soon as he phased, he just started to fall through the planet. And that was the first thing he did whenever he ran into trouble, and he started to sink through the planet. And that was one of those ones where I think he died on his first session on that character, or more specifically, he gave him up on his first session. Like I said, I think there was I don't think like the DM was ever out to screw anyone over like that. Maybe I'm wrong. Like I know like personally, like my earlier DMs, like there was some kid gloves with like the first couple sessions with people where you know, unless you did something absolutely excuse me, like absolutely detrimental to your health, you know, like the DM would probably try to help you out a little bit to kind of like get you acclimated to things. And I think ultimately, even like Old Testament generations DM probably would have allowed for something like that. But yeah, Mike gave up. Mike wasn't on that whole patient stuff, so he gave up that character pretty quick. The other one, I made a video about like Old Generations DM, but never posted it because there was something I said in it that I didn't like the way it came off. And you know, with the format of these videos, it's hard to go back. I can't go back and like edit or anything like that. I just didn't want it out there. But that being said, the story that came from that I wanted to retell was, as far as like cementing Old Testament DM status, was Mike had made that character, basically screwed himself over to the point where it was uncertain whether or not he could actually get out of that situation, to the point he gave up his character in the first session. And it was like, I think that became an achievement in Unleashed, whereas like if you die in your first session, you know, you get some points out of it. It's like, see you in 2 weeks, player, because that was back then. That's what happened. Is there was a lot of people. The character customization process was, I think, a little quicker back then, but like the DM would be like, you know, you got 2 weeks, player, before you can make another character, because there's work that the DM has to put into it and everything like that. So he did that, and then one of his other characters, and this character I didn't remember anything about, because Mike had like 3 or 4 characters, because he had a bad habit of going through characters, and not because like that he was just making new ones, because they got themselves killed. He made this other character, and I think he was teamed up with Jay, because they were kind of best friends in college, and we were all friends and everything like that. But he was like, him and Jay were pretty close, and I don't remember anything about the details about this character, but what I remembered, he was paired up with Jay, and very early on in his session, there was an event that was happening where Jay, who makes these notoriously powerful characters, I think got into it with somebody and ended up destroying a nearby moon, I want to say, which is pretty nice in its own right. Like, I mean, that's you know, respect to Jay, because I like I said, it was one of those ones where I hadn't realized that people could be that powerful from the start. I think Jay, on top of making powerful characters, also tends to pick really good numbers. And like whenever I heard Timir conquered 12 planets, I'm like, you know, my mouth was literally agape, because to me, like, Generations was like the frickin' hard mode game. Like, it was, you do not conquer a planet without running into like some cannon type person who's going to come up there and body you if you like try to lay claim to a city block, let alone a country or an entire planet. Because we were always running into interesting characters like that. And that's kind of a testament to Generations. Like, I was always amazed the catalog of characters that existed within Generations, and I was like, holy heck, that must have been a lot of work, and I'm sure it was. But yeah, so I'm sorry, I'm kind of like meandering here, which I tend to do, because I didn't really have a point behind this video. I was just kind of shouting out some Generations real world with that, I guess. Anyway, so Mike had made his character, and he was an amnesia type character. He didn't want, like, it was like one of those ones where I think he was kind of a fast made character. He might have even like been born in a test tube or something like that. And so he gets out, and within like the first, I think, 2 or 3 sessions, Jay gets into this thing. He destroys this moon, and the moon is crashing towards the planet Mike is on, and he can see it coming in the sky. And like he starts to feel the effects of like the I think it was like increased gravity or something like that. It was just a really cool moment to see. Not for Mike though, who did not make a character that was fast enough to like outrun it. He had no way to get away from it, and like no way to outrun it, no way to teleport like to another place. And I said that was something like, there was these metas that came out of real world, or came out of like college days real world, and it was like, the first one was powerful people will come and take your powerful items. So you need to think of a creative way to basically attach yourself to them. Which, like, I think Keith is actually, well, again, Keith, being the man that he is, has pioneered some ways to get really powerful items that people can't take. So there was that, and then the second meta that kind of evolved from it is you need an escape power. Like, you can't be just like strong or anything like that. You need to be able to get away, because like there's some stuff coming for you, and there's also like some stuff that is like inevitably going to kill you if you can't get away. In this case, a moon or another, like a small planet, because like, you know, like it could have been like a King Kai sized planet, like a smaller one, but enough to basically wipe out probably a good bit of life on that planet just from like the collision impact, and then like the fallout, like the dust cloud or whatever, you know. But anyway, I just remember like the look on Mike's face, not his character's face. His face as I sat across from him. This is like this kind of mouth agape, as like he like frantically tries anything he can imagine in his new character's arsenal to escape this destruction that basically another player like indirectly caused. And it was just like him getting swept up in the wake of it. I think he just straight up died. Like the planet crashed into him. Like it didn't like crash exactly into him, but like just the force of the planet crashing in killed him. And it was such a hilarious moment, and it really cemented that Old Testament DM thing that I had said, where it's like you could get yourself killed so easily through like indirect actions of another player like that. Like it wasn't like they like decide to fight and get it in and one killed the other. It was just like, no, this is Mike was collateral damage. And it's like, you imagine like imagine someone like Sage or like something like that, characters that have put so much, you've put so much time into as far as like their backstories and stuff, and it's just like randomly dying as the result of like an accident from another player, not even an accident, like an unintentional action of another player, where it's just like, and it's something so far outside your control, like, oh, like that part of the galaxy you're in just got sucked into a black hole because there was a character that could make black holes, and he made one near your home planet. There's no way for you to escape. You have no ship, no teleportation, anything like that. But that was why I think we always, not everyone went teleportation. Like Zeratul went teleportation, but like I think like Atticus at that point, like, well, we just kept getting starships, and I think a lot of times we would use like birthday points or like special like gifts from movies to get like new starships, because we inevitably destroyed them. They were kind of fragile for our powerful characters, and we weren't very good with items back then. But yeah, it definitely kind of cemented that old school DM status where it's like, oh, like this game isn't holding your hand at all. Like you could just straight up die. You could die from things well outside your control, not your own stupid actions. uh, but yeah, good stuff, man. Generations is the game. I know I didn't rate it the highest, which I said I was definitely surprised with, but man, a lot of good memories there. And I'm trying to remember. I wish I could remember more about my first character in Generations, because like I know he was an immortal and he was a pretty nice swordsman, and I forget what his second power was, because like back then, like it seemed like everyone made it was like, I guess, like like I talked about those metas and stuff like that, and like the three metas that came out of college was everyone made hybrid characters, sometimes to our detriment, because like some races just didn't blend as well with others. Like I think the Protoss Celentrian was ultimately a detriment to Zeratul. Like if he was just straight Celentrian, he would have been so much nicer of a character, to the point where I still consider to this day, if I ever I was like, should I go back and make another Celentrian, because they were such an awesome character. Like they were such an awesome race. Like being able to, like, they inherently get the ability to mimic other people's power. Like that was like, was it that? I'm pretty sure it was that. I can't remember if that was his. Don't quote me on that. I know they inherently, like, they travel really well, and someone maybe who's run into them could tell me different, but I feel like they had that, and then I know for sure he had the ability to mimic other people's powers, to the point where he could mimic cosmic energy. And I think I ran into another Celentrian who basically said, if you had been raised with us, you would understand how to do this far more effectively than you do, and you would be able to utilize it. Like, Tigress, for all his niceness and everything like that, I feel like, Zeratul could have been there as far as like powers and energies. Like the fact that he could even like conjure cosmic energy in Sean's game, which, like, I want to say it's one of those everything energies, because of people like Alex and Stargazer that he ran into. Like they were very everything characters, and it's like the fact that he could even conjure it and like have it out around him and stuff like that was impressive in its own right, because it was such a, like, I think the way like the DM described it is like one of those ones where it's like this infinitely complicated thing, and like I think he could bring out chi like Saiyans could, because he was around a lot of Saiyans, and he could bring out like I think something like Drew's demon energy, which was really destructive, by the way. So yeah, like whenever like Tigress came and like got all his energy and everything like that, it's like, I don't want to say Zeratul did it first, but he just did it much less effectively. And like I said, I think it was a detriment because he was half Protoss, half Celentrian, and a lot of people I think they were just trying out different combos of like fantasy races. Like, oh, like, you know, I love this character from this anime, but what if he was mixed with this? Or I love, you know, stuff like that. Like, and Atticus was the same way, and so was my my immortal character. And Immortal in real world, like that was my first character in real world. I didn't know any better. Like Immortal in real world is not good because getting your head cut off in real world, being like absolutely incinerated, are things that can absolutely happen to your character. So the immortality spectrum of it is like you might as well have been like you're like a vampire immortal in the sense like, oh, fire and sunlight can kill you. Yeah, yeah, you're not really immortal. You just don't age. It's kind of a nice little perk, but it's not an actual real like good power in any way. But, you know, live and learn with that. And, yeah. Alright, I'll probably cut out there because this is probably already way too long. People are like, why are you going on for this long with no real point to your video? I hope you guys enjoyed.